You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope it's splendid in your neck of the woods. Just wanted to take a couple minutes before we got started to tell you about Gun Street Wiring Shop. Sean and the crew have been supporting the show for quite a while now, and I gotta say, got a lot of good feedback from everybody who has used their services and products. So if you got a guitar with the wiring harness that you're not quite happy with, maybe you got some scratchy pots, maybe you got a switch going out, or maybe you just want to upgrade just because you want to sonically experiment, as we're always doing around here. That's the place to go. Go to gunstreetwiringshop.com. Breathe some new life into your old guitars. I mean, it's almost like getting a new instrument when you get done upgrading these things. It's really a big improvement, and the customer Customer service is absolutely top notch. So make sure you go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check out all the offerings. And of course, I have to tell you about Sinusoid. Sinusoid Custom Cables. Pro Audio Couture, they call themselves. Out of Washington, so they're like Oregon's hat, where I live. They are making the finest cables on the market, fully backed by a 100-year warranty. And they have this awesome custom cable builder on their website. So if you go to sinusoid.com, you'll see the custom cable builder where you can select the brand, you can select the plugs, like right angle, straights, Neutrik, whatever. You can select all that stuff. You can pick whether you have Tech Flex or not. You can pick the color of Tech Flex. Like, you can pick everything that you could think to pick for a cable. You can do it in their custom cable builder. You can get exactly what you need delivered to your door with a 100-year warranty. And they're some of the best folks in the business. They've been supporting the show for years at this point. And if you haven't sinusoided yet and you've been listening, come on, go get yourself some good cables. You deserve it. Your tone deserves it. Do it. Sinusoid.com. Last and certainly not least, I'd like to talk about Stringjoy. Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, Tennessee. I actually had the opportunity to go down there and lend some of my redneck abilities in helping set up some new stuff last summer, I believe it was. And I got to witness the process that goes on behind the scenes. And I was blown away at how labor intensive it is. I really didn't know. I've watched some videos from other companies, and I've seen how they do it. And the way Stringjoy does things down there is extremely detail oriented. There's a lot that might slip through the cracks at a bigger company that never makes it out the door there. And they really, really care, and they're always constantly trying to improve. And so, yeah, people have asked me if they're worth it, but it's all I play. And I know a lot of people have been very satisfied, and you can get more gauges there than just about anywhere else. They can get a 90. You need a 90 for your electric guitar? If you need it, they got it. So make sure and check it out. Their website's really easy to use, and you can just click right through, build your own custom set if you want, or select from some of their pre-made sets, and boom, delivered right to your door with a super rock solid guarantee. If you're not happy with it, let them know. They'll make you happy one way or another. And that's what I love about all these companies that are sponsoring. They all have great guarantees. So if you want to try out something new, you want to squeeze out some new tone out of your instruments, there's an easy way to do it. Go to stringjoy.com, mess with some gauges, get crazy, get weird, and know that you're getting some of the best strings ever by people who truly, honestly, deeply care about the product and your experience. So go there, stringjoy.com, check them out today. Show them some love. One quick note before we get into this episode proper. If you're on the mailing list, you've already seen this, and I've tried to make it known everywhere, especially if you're a new listener. This episode's audio is jacked up. So Adrian sounds wonderful, and I sound kind of weird. It's a lot better. I had some help from Nicholas Wieland. I hope I'm saying your last name right. It might be Violent. I don't know. I really apologize. And Dave from the Heavy Reverb podcast to get it to sound as acceptable as we could. There was a glitch where the wrong mic was recording, and it's a long story, but you really can't tell until you go back and listen to it. And so we recorded the whole episode, and I went back and listened, and blah. Okay, what are we going to do with my track? So the conversation was so good, I didn't want to lose it, and we managed to make it happen. So yeah, big shout out to those guys. And also, if you're a new listener, this is not normally what I sound like. I normally sound like this. What you hear moving forward is not how my tracks usually sound. So many apologies, but I think the conversation is good enough that you will enjoy it. And the next one's going to be this way as well, unfortunately, because I didn't catch it until it was too late. So my bad. I'm really sorry. I'm going to try to make sure that doesn't happen again. But it's good conversation. I think you'll enjoy it anyway. And on with the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Adrian Thorpe of Thorpy Effects. What's going on, man?
Wow, it's dark here and all is well. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this will be fun. I feel like we're gonna have a good time. I don't know if this is just an American thing or not, and you tell me, because I know you've talked to people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Are all Americans kind of obsessed with British accents, or is it just me?
Oh, I have been to many places in the States, and it seems to be universal. Okay. Nashville was a particularly pleasurable experience. Getting stopped and asked, I was asked, could you speak for me? You sound like Downton Abbey, which I thought was amusing.
I mean, it's not entirely inaccurate, I suppose.
Well,
was it like one of those drunken bridesmaids walking down Broadway? Ah, you sound like Downton Abbey. Was it one of those ladies? Or?
Very, very close, actually. There was a nursing convention on while we were there. I went there for a long weekend when I was in the military and I was serving, and we went over there for a couple of weeks, and we had a long weekend, and drove from Kansas, Fort Leavenworth, down to Nashville. Had an awesome time there, and yeah, there was a nursing convention going on. It was amazing.
That sounds like a time filled with a bunch of stories that are not fit for maybe this podcast.
Probably not.
Like. Oh man, that's very interesting. So that actually is a nice segue into this. So tell me about yourself. You're former military. I did know that. Like, what's your musical backstory? How did you get into making effects pedals? That seems like a decent leap from one career to another.
Yeah, I'm quite an obsessive guy with anything I get into. I just try and take it to the nth level, And so I just commissioned from the UK equivalent to West Point. Okay, in fact, our final exercise at Sandhurst, Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, which is the where you go to train to be an officer in the army. We'd just done our final exercise with some guys from West Point. And I found myself with a young troop of soldiers, and in the evenings, I also found myself with loads of free time. So you can do a few things. You can drink, you can go to the gym, or you could do whatever. So I've done
that last
So I've done the gym. I did a bit of drinking, but it's never really suited me that much. And so I started to think and look at guitar electronics. And I fell down this rabbit hole. It must have been a very big rabbit hole because I'm fairly broad. And there you go. So I started obsessing about it, and I started off with the same circuits probably everyone does. My heroes were like Tony Iommi, Brian May, etc., Eric Clapton, and I was looking at what makes their sound so cool, and it seemed to me from very limited research that it was a Dallas Rangemaster, and I looked into it. I thought, there's about 8 parts there. I probably could do that, and I built my first one, and it did not work. So that was a win. Anyway, I got it wrong. I got the positive, ground, negative, earth, all that. So I got it all wrong. And anyway, fixed it, and then I was hooked from that point on. Absolutely hooked. Because I was running that through a Marshall combo amp, and it, to me, despite my ham-fisted playing, it sounded great. And yeah, so then I started looking at other circuits, Fuzz Face, Tube Screamer, Blues Breaker, lots of drive and dirt, C2, and the list became the most ridiculous thing possible. And I was building them in double digits for fun every week.
Wow. So, but you didn't just start out with effects. I don't think. I imagine you were actually playing first. What made you pick up the guitar in the first place?
Same thing, really. Bit of boredom. I had friends who were playing things like the PlayStation. I think it was PlayStation 1 back then, PlayStation 2, and they were enjoying that. But for me, I'm just not that way inclined. I'm also not particularly good at computer games, so I thought, well, what I can do is I can either learn a language or I can learn a musical instrument. So I went with musical instrument because I thought it looked cool, you know. And yeah, electric guitar it was. It had to be.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, that is the coolest. Let's not lie.
Absolutely. I thought it was gonna, I was married at the time, but or just about to get married at the time, and I thought, oh yeah, this will definitely. I'm just talking rubbish. Obviously, not increase my sex appeal, and but I thought it was cool.
We all hope for that, right? And it just doesn't seem to. It's like it's almost like we're just not. It's not like we're all cut out to be rock stars. It's weird. It's weird how only a certain few that works for.
Absolutely, I've got a face for a podcast or a radio, whichever way you want to say it.
I can relate to that in a big way. That's why I do it. Like it's no one ever encouraged me down the path of modeling or anything like that. So I assume that's probably not in the cards for a guy like me. So
well, you know what they say, the camera adds £10, and I was looking at myself now and I was thinking, oh, there must have been about 10 cameras on me.
Oh man, that's
a
lot of. You're 100 pounds overweight. I've seen pictures of you. You look good. Like I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not that overweight, but I could do with trimming down back to my fighting weight. That'd be good.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. So you started building all these effects. You started building them once a week. Or like several times a week. You were building a ton of pedals.
Yeah.
When was like the light bulb moment that you thought, oh, maybe I could sell some of these?
Well, to be honest with you, that came out of necessity because, despite being relatively well paid in the military, you've only got so much funds, and you can only spread it so far. So it became clear very quickly that having built up a stock of pedals, of self builds, that to fund the next batch, I would need to sell them on, and so I just put them on eBay and things like that. And just recoup the cost. Essentially, I wasn't looking to make any money. I just didn't want to lose any money. So my time was rated at 0, and I got my money back, and then just piled that into more parts. So I was looking at things like vintage germanium transistors and proper carbon comp resistors, etc., etc. And so it wasn't really so much a light bulb moment. It was more of a necessity. And bear in mind, I'm doing this on a properly amateur basis at that point. But when it started, I started to get repeat custom on eBay. I then realised actually there's probably a fairly healthy market for it. I had people actually messaging me saying, I've just bought this, love it. Could you build me one of these? And then I started doing a few custom jobs for people, and this was all going on while I've got a full-time career. So I'm working hard at my career, and essentially this is my evening work. And it carried on for a little while, and then I had to go and do my trade training to become a EOD specialist, so bomb disposal.
What?
So paused. Sorry?
For real? You were disposing of bombs?
Yeah, we call it explosive ordnance disposal. So that was my trade. In the UK, my actual qualification at the end of it was ammunition technical officer. Okay, EOD.
Okay,
So
okay. We need to take just a brief moment and pivot a little bit because this is, we talk about gear, but we're also focused on the people, and this just got really interesting for me really quickly. Not that I wasn't already interested, but you were disposing of bombs.
yeah, well, not
That's
just
that's not a thing that people. That's not a thing that most people do.
yeah. It's what I joined the military to do, really. I mean, my initial train of thought when I signed up to the military, because I joined when I was 15, essentially. What you do is I did a load of tests to be selected to go to a specific technical military college. And I wanted to become a pilot. I wanted to become a fast jet pilot, but my eyesight wasn't good enough. And so thereafter, I thought, well, what can I do instead? Well, actually, what's exciting? Yeah, explosives seem quite exciting. So I thought I'd get into that. So I did, and got selected, went through all the tests, and then did all the training because it takes about 18 months to do your basic EOD training in the UK military. But it's not just counter-terrorist stuff. It's logistic disposal, so getting rid of stacks of munitions that are out of date. It's becoming a weapons specialist and understanding how things work. So my trade was quite varied, and it took a while to get qualified.
That's crazy. Before we dive back into the pedals, what is the craziest situation that you found yourself in that trade?
Oh, blimey. It, very odd, really. I mean, I've been very close to explosions. Like, felt the heat, felt the blast go over you, feel like you've been punched in the stomach. And the reason that's crazy is because I really enjoyed it. Which doesn't make any sense, I know, but it was a massive rush, and I wasn't expecting that. There was no fragmentation; it was just a big blast, and but it was a proper kick, and so on a personal level, that's probably the craziest because I just wasn't expecting to react in that way. I kind of enjoyed it. I got a rush out of it.
What was the situation surrounding that?
Um, it was essentially sort of blown through a door.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I mean, I imagine there's probably some things you can't elaborate on too much.
I'm being deliberately coy, but yeah. So there's certain things. I mean, I've done multi ton disposals. 2 kilometers away, and maybe not that far actually, a kilometer away, and you can see the blast wave coming towards you, and see a mushroom cloud form. It's not a nuke, obviously, but you still get a mushroom cloud as a result of the amount of heat that's generated. I've had near misses. Being put on the spot here, it's a bit odd with regards to trying to recall it. But I've been really lucky. I've lost friends in the service doing this work, and so I am absolutely blessed that I have all my fingers, all my toes, and I have my family around me. Other people haven't been so lucky, so yeah, I find it hard to answer if I'm honest.
Yeah, okay, we won't talk about that anymore. I
That's all right.
understand. No, it's just I knew you had a military background, but that was something I was not expecting coming. I had no idea it was that specifically.
Yeah, no, I actually transferred down the route of becoming a weapons specialist, sort of development. You have what we call staff jobs, so actually you bounce in and out from an operational job to a staff job, and vice versa, and one gives you rest from the other. So I've done the operational jobs, and I've also done the staff jobs, and the staff jobs were where I got qualified to a higher level. So I went back and did 2 master's degrees in explosives engineering and battle space technology. And so they were to supplement my undergraduate degree. I effectively became a subject matter expert in how weapons work, the chemistry behind it, and all of that sort of good caper.
Wow, that is amazing. I know a little bit about firearms and the basic function and stuff, but not anything beyond what your average soldier would know about. So this is all kind of interesting, but probably the subject for a different podcast. So back to
sorry.
guitar pedals. I'm very fascinated. I really, really am. This is very intriguing to me. But it seems like you're a bit overqualified for the effects world in some ways.
Well, do you know what? One of the best things you can do as an engineer is actually look outside the narrow field that you're in for inspiration. Okay. So, one of the benefits I have in developing military equipment and weaponry, etc., is that I understand what needs to be done to a piece of equipment to have it work in high pressure situations. Okay. So,
Okay.
if you're under fire from an enemy or blue on blue, whatever, um, you're being shot at. That is an extremely stressful situation to be in. And so, consequently, whatever you interface with, be it your rifle, be it the weapons, be it whatever, you really want them to be as simple as possible. Because when it comes down to it, your brain will not be as functioning as well as it ought because you're under stress, right?
Of course.
So, the stuff I helped bring into service, I always made sure it was functional, robust, and absolutely hit the key user requirements, right? So what I've done is I've taken that knowledge and expertise, I've tried to apply it to guitar pedals. Now, they do different things for different reasons, but if you're a live musician, or even if you're playing in your bedroom, often it's extremely stressful because you've got timings to keep. You've got a crowd to please. You're struggling already with your instrument. So what you want from your guitar pedal is it to work regularly and in a robust manner. And the interface between the pedal and you as a guitarist needs to be as simple as possible, but as powerful as possible. So I try and my pack as much functionality into my pedals as is humanly possible, but with as minimal controls as possible.
I see. That does make a lot of sense. So you're trying to squeeze the most out of the least, basically, and that
Essentially,
applies in both fields.
yeah, and some pedals do it better than others. I've been really successful with the Team Medic. That is a really powerful pedal. It's essentially a buffer booster EQ with more boost. Now it does a hell of a lot, and actually it's only got 5 knobs and an internal switch if you need to switch the buffer on and off. But that sat at the end of your pedal board can do an astonishing amount to your guitar pedal board's overall tonality.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. What was some of your first? So personally, when I became first aware of your pedals, it was probably about the same time most Americans were aware of them, and that's when you were doing some stuff with Pro Guitar Shop, and I seen these crazy case designs, which they're not. It's not like nothing like that has been done before, but they're pretty unique, especially in this day and age of aluminum gray boxes, which I'm not against at all. I just was immediately drawn to the big shiny case that you have for your pedals. What was the thought process behind that, and how did that become kind of your signature?
Okay, so we designed that for several reasons. Okay, first off, there was the engineering side of it. So I wanted the foot switch to be presented to your foot. Loads of people have done a similar thing, tube screamers, etc. I think it's a great idea. We wanted the knobs to be recessed so that you could not adjust the knobs accidentally with your foot or when it's in your case. So essentially, to change the knobs, you've really got to get into the control cavity and have a conscious effort to change them. I've seen and repaired so many pedals where people have just kicked them off, like shattered the potentiometer and kicked it off the pedal. So the aim was to try and reduce that sort of attrition rate. We also put the jacks at the top and we put the DC jack at the top, which isn't, it's not rocket science. It just makes sense from a real estate perspective to have it all at the top because you know what? You can fit more pedals side by side. Then finally, we put the side guards up the side again, just to protect the knobs on that part. So from left and right. And realistically, there is also the element that it's a crowded pedal market. So we do these things for an engineering perspective, but people eat with their eyes. You look at something, and if it's attractive to you, it then draws your attention towards it, and you have a more fascinating look at it. And so there was an element of wanting to stand apart from the crowd, and so going that extra mile to consciously do that. And that's why our pedals look the way they are now. The only error I made was going for polished stainless steel, which looks amazing. The etching process is done with a really high-powered laser that's dialed right down. And then the only problem with that is I can't photo the things for damp because it's really hard to do.
Yeah, when you pull it off, though, they sure look incredible. I've had a similar problem with I got a 1981 Devices DRV, and it is shiny, like I don't know what kind of powder coat it is, but it is like almost chrome looking.
That's a
And
beautiful pedal, by the way.
Oh, it is. They did a great job with the aesthetics, and I think it sounds great too. But it also I love looking at it. But I can't take a good picture of it. So
yeah, there's an angle. What you need to do is you almost have to bounce light off of it. So that's how I do it. I effectively put the light up in the top left-hand corner and take a photo from underneath it or to the side of it at a specific angle, and then the light bounces off the etching in a very nice way, and you don't get any reflections. Otherwise, it's horrible to photo.
Yeah, I'll have to take that advice. I've had that same problem before. So, what are your thoughts, circuit wise, when you're going into something? You kind of explain that you want as much control with as few controls, but like what holes are you looking to kind of fill in the marketplace when you go to create a new product exactly?
Okay, so what I aim to do is I like guitar pedals that allow your guitar to sound like your guitar. Now, there are guitar pedals for all budgets. There absolutely are. And sometimes people want a sludgy, heavy fuzz or whatever. And that's great. Okay. For us, what I'm trying to achieve is clarity. Firstly, I want you to hear all your strings. If you're holding down a chord and you strum the chord, I want you to be able to hear what you're doing. Um, and I'm not talking shrill treble. I'm talking just it's present. You can hear it. You can hear what you're doing. I also, I want the noise floor to be as low as possible, ideally, because noise is essentially detracting from the signal, and if you can have it removed, who wouldn't want that? So that's what we try and achieve there. And yeah, if you're playing a Telecaster, it should sound like a Telecaster. If you're playing a Les Paul, it should sound like a Les Paul. And I try and design a pedal to fit as many guitar types, pickup types as possible. So I have specific guitars here, P90s, humbuckers, heavy humbuckers, single coils, whatever, that I test through the pedals. I also test those pedals through a variety of amps because all the amps are different, have different EQs, different foibles. Putting a mid-focused pedal through a Marshall, which is mid-focused, isn't ideal. It doesn't sound very good, or it can sound poor. So from a design perspective, I do try and cover a lot of ground, and I do test as widely as possible so that whoever gets the pedal can enjoy it without going, oh, it doesn't work for my rig.
Gotcha. So just as much versatility, across, or compatibility rather, with as much as possible.
And the one thing I haven't mentioned is musicality. The reason I haven't mentioned it is because for me, that's just a given. If it doesn't sound musical, unless you're playing things like a ring modulator, some synth stuff, and you're trying to be wacky. I think everything that I make should be musical. It should have a purpose. I would hope that it could be recorded and laid down onto vinyl or onto CD. And I think that's an absolute given. It's the foundation, really.
I think you're right about that. I think everybody these days, it's like a lot of people say it. It's almost like, yeah, well, duh. If it doesn't sound good, why would you make it? obviously there's some exceptions, like you mentioned, ring mods and crazy fuzzes and things that are intentionally destroying your signal, which is what you're trying to do in those situations. And I love that. But yeah, overall, if the pedal doesn't sound good to your ears, there's no reason to make it. There's too many pedals on the market already. Why make a bad one?
Absolutely. And you know what? I think we're in a bit of a golden age of gear at the moment. There is a hell of a lot of good product out there. But one of the things I saw a few years ago was Paul Reed Smith talking about. He was saying that anything between the guitar and the amplifier detracts. Now he doesn't come across as a particular fan of pedals. I think he's just a guitar straight plugged into the amp kind of guy. And to a certain degree, he's right. You know, anything you stick in your signal chain can detract from what the interface between you and the amplifier. However, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, because when you add certain pedals, they can be your entire sound. You know, so is that then detracting? I would say no. If you're using a pedal platform amplifier, then having good quality pedals and a variety of them is an absolute must.
Yeah, I've heard his theory before, and the first time he actually explained it to me at my first NAMM. We did a video together with the Ryan from 60 Cycle Hum, and I went up and talked to him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And, we were kind of being goofballs because that's our nature. And he was like, let me get serious for a minute. And he talked about his subtractive theory of guitar. And
Yeah.
on one hand, it does make a lot of sense. He's basically saying a guitar is, it's basically that I'm probably butchering how he said it. He probably said it a lot more eloquently than this, but basically the guitar is like the strings and the pickups and anything else that kind of gets, that is added to the guitar, be it a tremolo or different circuits, or he said it's actually not adding to it, it's subtracting from the original sound. And I do understand that, like he's like what he's getting at, but I agree with you in that, like, yeah, like, but you can't, like, what if the Edge didn't have any pedals when he played? What would he sound like? It wouldn't work.
He'd sound blunt, wouldn't he? He wouldn't sound like an Edge. Sorry, that was terrible. Ba-boom.
Hashtag dad jokes.
Yeah, don't. I'm terrible for them. But then there's the other side of it. You know, if you take his pure subtractive theory on board and you go, okay, great, it is subtracting. But if you look at, say, a car's a perfect example of this. Slightly off topic, so forgive me. You go, all right, you've got a car. It can do 150 miles an hour. All right, and if you look at it under that light, you go, yeah, 150 miles an hour. I'm really happy. My car's perfect. But your car can't go around corners very well. So you stick a spoiler on it. Now, the spoiler provides downforce and pins the car to the floor. Now, your top speed drops from 150 miles an hour to 140 miles an hour because it just has to, because you're effectively robbing some of the aerodynamic, let's call it slickness. You know, the airflow over the car is interrupted. However,
you're trading aerodynamics for downforce, basically.
You are, and then your car performs better around corners. Now, if you look at that in the pedal world, you're plugging a very nice guitar into a very clean amp, and essentially you sound good, clean. But you want to rock, that's not going to sound good. You need harmonics, you need a mix, you need distortion. It needs to feel liquid under your fingers. Guess what? Either crank the amp up and make it filthy as you like, or put a pedal in the way and do that through a pedal so that you've got a variety of tones at your feet. Are you detracting? In some ways, yes. But in other ways, you've improved the overall sound that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. It's not necessarily about a right way or a wrong way. It's what kind of rig aligns with your goals, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. People bemoaned John Mayer for not putting a reverb on his signature PRS amp. He said he didn't want one. He wanted to use a reverb pedal. Can't fault him, really. It might not work for you, but it works for John Mayer, and at the end of the day, he doesn't really care.
And I think he's, something tells me he's fine. Like he's going to
doing
be
all
okay.
Right, apparently. He's not struggling.
Doesn't appear to be. Not at least in that in the in the tone or the music or anything really.
Absolutely.
I don't know where I'm going with that,
Hats
but
off to him.
I think John's doing fine. Apologies to Joe Branton for us talking about John Mayer, but
Oh dear,
we
did he
did.
get upset?
But this is a nice segue, though. So, artists, we brought up a couple of artists here. Who are some people that you listen to and have inspired you over the years?
Oh, blimey, it varies. I'm really eclectic with what I listen to. My music tastes are as such. Music has to move me, and I don't mean physically, but it sometimes emotionally it has to move me. So I grew up listening to music of the 60s because my dad was always listening to music of the 60s. Now, I actually know a lot of those songs. I couldn't tell you who sung them, and I couldn't tell you, when it was released, but I could hum along to that tune and tell you the lyrics because it was just subconsciously pounded into my psyche. However, when I hit teenage years and wanted to find my own way musically, the things I was listening to were things like Nirvana, heavy metal of every single genre, and that sort of thing. But if it's rock, 80s, 80s metal, that's absolutely what I listen to in the car when I want to drive fast.
Like hair metal and things of that nature?
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen, Pantera, Motley Crue, you name them.
I dig it.
I absolutely adore Motley Crue.
Oh, really? Now,
Yeah,
this is interesting. Well, and also a very um, strange timing because I just seen a video of Motley Crue performing recently. I don't know if you've seen this video or not, but it was not the Crew of old. Unfortunately,
hey, listen,
it was
we
a
all
bit
get old.
rough.
Yeah, so I saw them performing at Download, which is a big metal festival over here. It used to be called Monsters of Rock, and you know what? It sounded great. They didn't have as much energy as they did in the 80s, but considering everything that they've been through, they're lucky to be alive.
I was actually amazed at the amount of energy that they did have for not they're not not my viewpoint maybe is a little bit fudged on this because in my old career there was plenty of guys that I worked with and talked to on a regular basis that were getting close to retirement age or whatever, but they were perfectly able-bodied and doing just fine in their 60s and even some of them close to their 70s. And so my viewpoint on age is somewhat skewed. So like those guys aren't really old to me
Yeah.
as in an age perspective, but they're definitely old from a mileage perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, was it Nikki Six? Didn't he? I mean, his leisure activities didn't they keep Pablo Escobar in business for years?
I'm pretty
Allegedly.
sure. I'm pretty sure
you
that
know, that's going to have a toll on your body. If we follow Paul Reed Smith's subtractive theory, they've probably removed a fair few important cells. I would suggest.
I think you're probably right about that. And I think I can't remember which podcast I talked about this same subject on, but like we can't all be Keith Richards. Like Keith Richards is like he's like a Usain Bolt of bodily abuse. Like nobody could take that kind of damage except for Keith and still keep on ticking. I really believe he's superhuman in some
Oh, he's an X-Man. He's from the comic
way.
books, isn't he? He's had so much substances that's mutated him or pickled him, whichever way you want to look at it.
That could be it. Maybe that's the secret. He took so much that it's actually had a preservative effect instead of being detrimental to his health. It's now like beneficial to him in some way.
Yeah, Jack Daniels will do wonderful things for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I don't know.
That's no health advice. Don't quote me. I'm not a qualified doctor.
You're an engineer, not a doctor. Don't listen to him.
Yeah, isn't that like that's like a quote from Star Trek, isn't it? I'm a
Yeah,
doctor, not an engineer. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm a doctor,
Sorry.
not a physicist or whatever it is.
Sorry.
So yeah, so outside of the '80s metal, do you ever tone it down a little bit? Do you ever get mellow and just kind of chill out with tunes, or are you pretty much rocking all the time?
Yeah, probably. I mean, in all honesty, I can't. I like Blur and things like that, and I like the '90s indie scene can be pretty cool. I quite like Nirvana. I quite like that sort of thing. I'm going to see Alice in Chains, um, it's pretty soon. But then on the flip side, on my birthday, I'm going to go and see Rammstein. So
There you go.
I I don't think that's toned down at all. I like some of what the Rolling Stones do. I love the Beatles. I love what they've done. But truthfully, if I want to really enjoy the music that I listen to, it tends to be pretty hard rocking. Yeah.
Does that have? You think that has an impact on it? Wait, like basically what you were listening to when you were growing up, like that very specific time frame in the in your life that had a big impact on you.
Um, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I tell you what, I see it with my daughter at the moment. So my daughter's 18 months old. Okay, she will dance her little socks off if there's something absolutely rocking on the stereo. Because it's obviously moving her. Uh, and I think you're growing up as a kid that those things you can't really explain why something moves you. Some people absolutely love, um, I don't know, classical music. For me, it's not. I don't really like it that much, but I quite like Wagner. So it's 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 hard to explain. It just for me it has to rock pretty hard and get my head bobbing.
Do you ever slant into the more extreme metal genres, like the getting into doom or metalcore or black metal or something like that, or is it more hard rock?
Um, yeah, I mean that genre's. I suppose heavy metal is such a broad term. I shouldn't really use it, but yeah, for me, if I can't hear the vocals, I don't enjoy it. So
Okay.
some of the screaming, I'm just not into it. I I don't really like satanic metal or death metal or anything like that. Not because they're not talented musicians, they absolutely are, but I just want to understand the vocals. Um, that's why for me, Slipknot's one of my favorite bands, and the reason is I can hear what they're singing, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Gotcha. I can relate to that too. I mean, I definitely like certain my tastes with heavy music are really strange. Like I like some very, very heavy music, but I have a pretty hard line, kind of similar, a little bit similar to you, but I think I might take it just a touch further. Like I just can't. I can't quite. I've tried to listen to some of the more extreme stuff, and I'm just like, I don't. Like you said, it has to move you. It just doesn't. And it's the
Yeah,
same
I
thing.
agree.
I'm not I'm blown away by the technicality of some of it, but it's like, it's not for me. Just isn't.
Yeah, I tried listening to a band called Dimmer Borgir a few years ago. One of their songs I really liked because I think I'd heard it in a movie or something like that. Um, but I just couldn't, I couldn't gel with the rest of the album. That being
Hmm.
said, I saw Josh Smith last night. He came to visit us yesterday. He's obviously not a heavy metal player, but he was playing Eddie Van Halen while he was visiting, which is kind of cool because he was absolutely rocking it. Um, but he's very much a blues rock guy, and he's phenomenal. And his
He's a
playing
monster.
his playing absolutely moves me, just because I am astonished how he can do it. I'm astonished with his tone, and he's a super nice guy. So I think there's a bit of a fanboy thing there from my perspective.
Yeah, he's great. I've got to catch him a couple times here and there at Nam and various things. That guy that guy can really play. Like it's kind of mind bending sometimes to watch him. Like, oh man, almost makes you want to just hang it up.
Oh,
Just like, no,
absolutely,
I guess I'm
absolutely.
done.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he plays like 14s or something like that. I mean, it's they're like pylons. So I feel like a child handing over my guitar to him. Yeah, it's got tens on it. Probably going to suck for you. But and he still plays it better than me. I might as well set fire to that guitar. It's never going to sound as good.
It's a weird line, right, in between like who really inspires you as a musician when you watch them versus them also crushing your soul because you know that you're never going to be able to reach that level. I've found that like it's a strange combination of inspiration and just heartbreak. watching some
Yeah.
of these guys.
I mean, the real answer is, you know, you've got to take it on the chin, because ultimately, if you practice as much as they did, you might get closer. So really, with whenever we watch these people and go, oh blimey, there's obviously genetic freaks and natural talent as part of that. But if you put that, that 10,000 hour theory, if you sat down and focused entirely on what they're trying to do or what you're trying to do, you could probably get quite close. I'd love to be, I'd love to have the finances just to quit doing what I'm doing and just sit there and practice for 10,000 hours straight. See how that goes.
Man, that is true. There is the level of practice that some goes, but then, like you said, you mentioned genetic freak, and in the guitar world, my mind instantly went to Paul Gilbert and his massive fingers. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I couldn't spread that far. Like, oh, you just do this chord. I'm like, no, because my fingers are half as long as yours, and I cannot reach that far. So
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, has he got an extra set of joints? I'm not sure. It looks like it. I've seen him live, and he's a super nice guy as well. But God, it's scary watching him. You're just like, how? But then, have you ever seen Django Reinhardt play? Well, obviously not now, but see videos of him playing.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
true.
he's a gypsy jazzer, isn't he? And he's got a problem with one of his hands. He can play better than 90% of guitarists, and he's using two fingers. It's crazy.
That is a very, very good point. If you want it bad enough, you'll overcome it. And then there's that guy that you see videos of once in a while, and I've actually watched him at NAMM. The guy who I forget his name. I really wish I could remember it right now. But he plays with his feet. He doesn't have arms, and he's a better guitar player with his feet than I am with my arms. So yeah, you're right. There's a good point about just putting in the time.
I often find that absolutely bonkers. I have seen videos of him, but power to him though. Bloody hell. He's not just good for someone who's playing with their feet. He's good per se. That's it. You are that good on your instrument, regardless of how you're playing it. Bonkers.
Totally. Yep, it's an interesting instrument for sure, in that it's fairly adaptable if you really want to. It's hard to do that with other instruments. You know what I mean? I think it's just kind of it's also, I don't know. I feel like guitar breeds a certain amount of intense passion in people. So intense that they'll leave decent jobs in the military to start guitar pedal companies and things like that.
Yeah, well, there's no accounting for idiocy, is there? I'm joking.
Well, I can relate. I left the petroleum industry to be working in the guitar field, so we're just both a couple of idiots over here.
It's there's more. I mean, there's more to it than giving up a good job. It has to be a lifestyle choice. I think I'm a lot happier now. Even though I loved what I was doing, I'm a lot happier now. I'm a lot less stressed on the whole. And I just, I have to pinch myself sometimes, because I think, well, actually, yeah, this is cool. Being in California in January. Have you ever been in the UK in January? It sucks.
No,
it's
but
freezing.
I know it's just like here in Oregon, or very similar.
There you go. I mean, what was really interesting, we were on Newport Beach, so we got our accommodation on Newport Beach because it worked out cheaper, Airbnb, right? So we made a holiday of it as well. And we're there in t-shirt and shorts, and people are looking at us as if we're from another planet, because obviously it's their winter, and we look like a pair of idiots, me and my wife. But hey, I managed to get a little bit of colour in my skin rather than being a pasty Brit. It was great.
I also rocked the shorts and the t-shirt that NAMM, and I actually felt like, I'm like, you know what? It's actually a little bit too warm for me right now, just a touch for my Pacific Northwest self. I don't know if you've ever been.
Storm.
Yes, I need some rain. Why isn't it raining right now? It's January. It's supposed to be raining. But one thing we didn't really touch on that I meant to is at what point was it obvious to you that it was like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing full time, and you worked a long, you worked a long time and put in a lot of work and effort in your other career. When was it apparent to you that it was time to leave that behind?
Okay, so the company was set up. Just trying to think now. Yeah, struggling with this. 2014, November 2014. Okay, and the reason the company was set up at that point is I, like many military people, I got divorced from my ex-wife, and I met my wife now, and we got married in November in 2014, and it was literally the day after we got married. My wife turns around to me and she says, "Well, what are you going to do now? We've got that project done, which was the wedding. What are we going to do?" And because my wife's great, she saw it as a big party. She was like, "Yeah, we're going to have a great time." So the wedding was done, and she goes, "Why don't you do what you've always wanted to do? Launch the pedal company you were going to launch a few years ago." And I didn't really have an answer for her apart from, "Yeah, yeah, cool. That sounds like a good idea. Let's do it." And so me and my wife went into partnership in the marriage, and we went into partnership with a company. And so it was 2014 when we decided we were going to do it properly. And from November 2014, we worked through till April the 1st, because we thought that'd be funny to sell our first product on April the 1st in 2015, which was the gunshot overdrive. And between that period, we took the prototype that I'd had previously made, and yeah, we released it April the 1st, April Fool's Day, 2015. And so that decision was actually fairly simple to make. It was a case of, you've always wanted to do this, do it. And so for a period of time, I worked 18-hour days because I still had a commitment to the military, and I was doing that, and was working in the evenings, and so was my wife, and she was working full time. The interesting thing is, my wife actually builds pedals with me. My wife is an amazing solder jockey. She's incredible. And basically, um, we've just pushed from that point on. It got to a point where I had achieved everything I wanted to achieve in the military, and it was either stay for a few more years to get lieutenant colonel or leave. So I left as a major, and and that decision was made 2017, and I was out of the army on sort of our sort of resettlement leave from NAM last year. So NAM 2017.
Wow, that's
2018,
incredible.
sorry.
Congratulations, by the way. That's still fairly recent, sort of ish, kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
or it probably feels recent.
Do you know what? It does and it doesn't. And it's from a time perspective, it's relatively recent. So we've only just done our second NAM, but yeah, it feels like a lot of water's gone under the bridge since, and yeah, I miss it. I miss the soldiers a lot. I miss the camaraderie, but I'm loving this. I'm absolutely loving this, and I feel really, really lucky that people dig what we're doing.
That's amazing. I can definitely relate to. I'm on a similar time period as you, and so that feels fresh. But you're right. There's been so much that's happened in a relatively short time frame. It feels like things are almost completely different in some ways.
Yeah,
Podcast and just with other things going on, it's like, wow. When you really put all of your eggs into one basket, you really make a lot quicker progress than when you're kind of trying to juggle multiple things at once.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're doing, as we're a lot more focused now, we've got the ability to release pedals faster, or at least release more complex pedals, and you're certainly going to see that from us. I mean, we released our first analog chorus at this last NAM, and that's it's a complex pedal. It's designed from the ground up to achieve a load of goals, but that took a lot of effort, and I wouldn't have been able to do that and juggle um, another job as well, because that was just so full on, and it went right down to the wire actually getting it ready for NAM. Um, but yeah, really happy with it.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next. I wanted to talk to you about that and what it was like bringing that thing to life and kind of the backstory behind that whole chorus pedal, because I feel like there's a lot there that people don't know.
Okay, so um, I'm not sure if people are aware, but I'm really good mates with a guy called Dan Coggins, and he's from Lovetone, or was formerly of Lovetone Pedals. Okay, he then had another brand called Dinosaural, but the Lovetone pedals, you'll see them on Reverb, and things like the Wobulator, the Meatball, the Cheese, Big Cheese, etc., etc. And they're all really collectible. Some of them, like the Flames with No Name, goes for like $2,000, and they were probably one of the first boutique pedal companies back in the 1990s when pedals really started to take off. Um, everyone from Bob Ross, Metallica, all the big bands, Radiohead, etc., all use those pedals. Now, Dan became a friend because we live geographically relatively close. I bought one of his pedals because I'm still a pedal geek. Just because I design doesn't mean I don't buy pedals. And we went and had a beer, as you do. Nice beer in a summer, in the summer in a pub garden, and yeah, we got chatting, and the relationship sort of developed from there. And so fast forward, me and Dan decided that we're gonna do some modulation. We're gonna do some stuff that's not been done. It's analog, because we think there's more to come from the analog realm. Everyone's doing digital at the moment, and they're absolutely killing it. There's some amazing stuff being developed, and we think there's still more to be developed from an analog perspective, and that's why the chorus was developed. So, excuse me. What we set out to achieve was to meet a certain amount of touchstone tonal um, positions, so to speak. So, big fan of the Boss CE1, big fan of the Boss CE2, big fan of Electro Harmonics chorus. Really big fan of the big Space Echo units, the 301, the chorus on that, the Dimension chorus. Massive fan of the Leslie thing. But also like the grittier chorus types and sounds. And so the Deep Oggin was designed to have a very specific preamp to respond to your guitar, to have enough boost on tap to get really quite gritty and dirty into your amplifier, which is, unusual from a chorus. Has enough range in both speed and depth to do everything from a subtle shimmer to a crazy warble like a laser. It's also a vibrato, so the blend mode 100% wet, and you're into vibrato mode, and there are many shades of chorus within there. Pretty much, it's a chorus for chorus lovers. You know, and we're quite proud of it because it was a lot of work.
I've heard from one source, our mutual friend Mikey Demas, who was also on
Yeah.
the podcast a little ways back. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, it was great. He is not, at least according to what he told me, he's not normally a chorus fan, and he loved this thing, which is also a good note.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's happened to us before, actually. Not necessarily with Mikey, but with other people. We've had a lot of feedback from people about, say, the Fallout Cloud, formerly called the Mushroom Cloud, and we also had feedback from people with regards to the Veteran. And the feedback generally goes like this: I'm not usually a fuzz fan. That sounds amazing. I really want one. Why do I like this fuzz and I don't like others? And it's different flavors, different strokes, different folks. But we've had that quite a lot. I'm not usually a fan of, but I like yours. How are you doing it? And the chorus, Mikey was a bit shocked because he's plugged in. He was like, I'm not going to like this. It was literally was. I don't really like chorus. And then carried on playing, carried on playing, carried on playing. I was like, oh, you do like it. That's great. I was quite proud of that moment, if I'm honest.
That's phenomenal. That's the goal, right? When you've delivered somebody some inspiration that they weren't expecting. That's always a good feeling.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing that you need to motivate you to do the next thing. when you're finding it hard and you're wondering why your circuit's not working properly as you wanted it to and you'd planned it to work, it's those moments when you finalize the product and properly good players are playing through them, that it just brings a smile to your face. Absolutely, it's a real sense of accomplishment.
On that same kind of note, what is the coolest thing that you've experienced as a result of running this company?
Oh, that's kind of cool. You know what? As a bit of a Blur fan, going out for dinner with with Graham Coxon from Blur was really surreal.
Whoa. Yeah.
Him and Andy from Reverb. So I've had dinner with Graham a few times now, which I've been really lucky because he's such a nice guy. And anyway, went out in the UK for a curry, Indian, and that was amazing. He was really funny. He's a good guy. And then in NAMM, I got invited by Andy of Reverb, formerly Pro Guitar Show. He said, "Oh, Graham's come to the show. Would you like to go out for dinner?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to." So I took my wife. We had a great time, and yeah, it was just a very surreal experience because this guy has had worldwide success with a worldwide, high quality band. He
Mm-hmm.
uses my pedals, and it's just cool. And but the funniest thing that came off the back of that is the very next day went to the Pedal Builders Guild, not Pedal
Yes.
Builders Guild, but the Pedal Builders sort of. Is it called the Guild? But anyway, it was at the bowling alley.
The bowling alley, yeah, the Pedal Builders Summit, I think, is what they have called it in the past.
That's it. I made it sound too posh there, didn't I?
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, we're just a bunch of guys at a bowling alley. Let's be honest.
yeah, it was cool. Really nice of the guys to organise that for everyone, and it's a real sign of the camaraderie that's in the industry. But Andy came to that night, and what was really funny was Graham Coxon was there with it, and we obviously he recognised us, and we said hello and had a good chat and had a good time. But there was the amount of people who were saying, "Oh, could you just take a photo of me and Andy?" So they're saying that to Graham Coxon, who is a legitimate rock star. Right? Yeah. I mean, Andy will confirm this because this and they go, "Oh, can you just take a photo of me and Andy?" Yeah, no dramas. He's such a nice
That
guy.
is funny.
It amused me. Yeah.
I was there too, and somehow I missed. I seen Andy. We talked briefly, but he was by himself when I caught him. I didn't see you two, unfortunately. But that night is you probably experienced this. It's like you get pulled in like 37 different directions, and it's like I want to
Yeah.
say hi to everyone, but I physically don't have the ability to do that. I need more of me to actually say hi to all of these people that you get to spend. For me, for instance, I spend hours and hours doing this all year, talking to people in depth and going, picking their brains and whatever, and then which is awesome. But then I kind of, I want to say hi and put my, shake their hand, and just it's different when you're in person than digitally. And you always leave NAMM, or at least I always leave NAMM going, I missed that person. I missed that person too. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm a little bit upset that I missed Graham Coxon, to be perfectly honest.
well, he was. I think the great thing for him is he was relaxing and enjoying himself and just chilling. And I often think that's probably how people want it to be. Some people love
It
love
is.
the limelight. I got the impression he just liked to be flying under the radar a little bit.
No, I get that. I definitely get that. All right, man. Well, we've made it to just about to that hour mark. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off and before I ask you the big question?
All right. Okay. Well, no. Firstly, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on your show. That's wonderful. Secondly, I want to apologise. To some of your American listeners, we don't have enough sort of spread of our product in America, and we're really doing our best this year to try and get more of our product out there. so that, you know, if you're, no matter what state you're in, our aim is to be able for people to be able to play our stuff. So, firstly, my apologies. We're rectifying that, and hopefully, if you can have a little bit of patience with me, you should see more of our stuff in and around the States very soon.
Very cool. Very cool. That's very exciting because we're hungry for it over here, man. We're used to having all of the pedals available at all times, and we just can't tolerate waiting. It's so hard for our this Amazon.com future that we live in, where we want it now and we want it yesterday and we want it before we even knew we wanted it.
I get it. I absolutely get it. I mean, one of my failings as a human being is I'm one of the most impatient people you'll ever meet. But I'm well aware of it, and I feel the pain for other people. Anyway,
the good news is that the people are ready as soon as you are. The people are here. I'm sure of it. So
well, watch this space. There's some big things afoot.
Oh, nice, very nice. Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, but I'm hoping you're sitting down for this last part. This is the big one.
I'm scared now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it'll make or break the company if we're being perfectly honest. What kind of pizza do you like?
Pepperoni.
Straight up pepperoni?
Pepperoni, absolutely. I mean, we don't have a lot of choice of pizza over here. I mean, you've got all these deep dish fangled things. Actually, there is one pizza over here that you don't get in the States. Do you know what doner kebab is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so it looks like it's like a Turkish meat on a spit vertically, and then you shave it, and it's lamb meat, and it goes into a pita bread. I think you might call it shawarma. I think that's
okay.
the American thing. Well, that meat on a pizza is available in the UK, and it's probably the best pizza you could ever get, and it's also the most unhealthy pizza you can get.
That sounds delightful. That sounds like all kinds of my business.
If you ever come over here, come and see me. I'll sort you out. We'll order one, and you can go back with clogged arteries.
If they're not done by now, then I don't think that piece will do it. But I'm very excited to try that. That sounds awesome.
Wicked.
So good. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Right. I'll wrap this thing up. So, for Adrian, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There you have it, folks. We did it. It's another episode in the can. Thank you for sticking with me. And again, apologies for the lack of audio quality on this one. That just drives me up the wall. But again, I think the chat was worth it. So hopefully you enjoyed all that and you made it to this point. So there you go. I guess you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in. And if you could drop us some reviews on iTunes or wherever you happen to listen to this thing. And if there's anywhere you'd like to listen to it and it's not on, let me know and I'll try to make it available. Shoot me an email to info@tonemob.com. Hit me up on any of the socials. And yeah, share this with a friend. If you've got somebody you think that would really enjoy this, get something out of it, please share it with your guitar playing fans. Well, yeah, if you're some rock star, you probably do have fans. Tell them about it. Yeah, this is a really fun project, and it's only made possible by everybody listening and keeping this thing going. And in that spirit, if you could, next time you're out shopping on reverb.com, you're looking to buy some gear, you could use the link tonemob.com/reverb. Anything you purchase, a small percentage of it comes back, keeps the show going, keeps the lights on, so to speak, around here. The mic's hot, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. You're going to buy that pedal anyway, and, you might as well use tonemob.com/reverb for all of your reverb purchases. It really, really does help a lot, so thank you for that. And yeah, with that said, good night, or good morning, or whatever. I don't know. We're going to cut to a commercial now, but after that, do whatever you want. Find another good podcast. Bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.